I'm Jen. I'm an LMFT at Harper Therapy.
Hi, I'm Alejandra. I'm a social worker.
So today we're here to talk about emotional.
We're having technical
We're
issues.
having
If you can see
technical
us, you.
Oh, there we are.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. This is me and Alina's first live.
Alejandra. Let's start over. So, Jen, Alejandra, and we're going to talk about emotional abuse.
Yes. Sorry, guys. It's our first live together. And so we're experiencing technical difficulties. But yes, Alejandra is going to tell us about emotional abuse and how you can see warning signs in your relationship and what it can look like.
Mm-hmm. So emotional abuse is just a little bit harder to identify than physical abuse because you cannot literally see it or like have a bruise in your body or like someone actually choking you. But it's when someone makes you feel like guilty or crazy, or if you have heard the words you're too emotional, you're overreacting, like they make you feel like your perspective and your reality is wrong and they are right.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that I witness emotional abuse a lot of times in my couple sessions or even in individual sessions. And people don't even recognize, like, hey, that is emotional abuse, because emotional abuse is so much harder to almost show. But it can look a lot of like someone putting you down or invalidating your emotions. It can be like you shouldn't feel that way. No one should ever tell you what your emotions should be because only you can dictate your own emotions.
Right. So it's hard to identify because people think, well, so do I always need to agree with my partner, otherwise am I abusing them? Like, you can disagree, you can have different opinions, but it's when you make the other person feel like they're wrong, like they shouldn't. Like, if I have a different opinion, I need to accept that you have it differently, or like I shouldn't be going and making people feel guilty. Like, one example that I use a lot with my couples is like spending time together. It's okay to have quality time together, but if your partner wants to go out with their friends or have a long time, making them feel guilty for not spending time with you, making them feel like less or lower because they're not putting you in that moment as a priority, that'll be emotional abuse because they also are entitled to have time for themselves or spend time with a friend. Like, there's not a rule that says you need to spend 24/7 with your significant other. So it's not being able to have that communication of like, I feel bad you're not spending time with me, but instead like, oh, you never spend time with me, you're so like calling names, like just making them feel awful. That's when the emotional abuse comes.
So it's like the guilt factor. So it's not necessarily like letting the person know, like, hey, I want to spend more time with you, or I'm sad we're not spending as much time together. It's this guilt factor of almost like telling you what you need to do and what you're not allowed to do, and making you feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
Another form is gaslighting.
Yes.
And that's when you're basically feeling something or noticing something and someone's basically telling you like, that didn't happen or that never occurred. And it actually comes from a movie. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
It's an old-fashioned movie where this guy was turning on the lights and the woman was like, what is going on? The lights keep turning on. And I think he's like, the lights aren't turning on. I don't know what you're talking about. And that's where that phrase comes from. Some old-fashioned movie.
Oh, that's crazy. Like, yeah, because it makes you feel like your perspective is wrong, or like, doesn't you make you feel like, am I going crazy? Like, you're stuck dying yourself. And emotional abuse can be hard because it's such a cycle that you may start believing the person that is doing that to you, that you feel that I am the one that's wrong, and that can take you into low self-esteem, depression. Like, it can go very, very wrong if you don't really see the signs early.
Absolutely. And sometimes what I notice is if emotional abuse occurs maybe a lot of times in childhood, where our parents have told us like, oh, like, you shouldn't be sad, or why are you crying, or even that phrase like, I'll give you something to cry about. Those are so invalidating of emotions. And when you're in a relationship, it may be harder to identify the signs of emotional abuse if you came from a childhood where maybe there was more invalidation of emotions or more emotional abuse. And so that's what I've kind of noticed is when I have people come in and they're talking about like allowing their partner, I shouldn't say allowing, but their partner talks them a certain way and they're not noticing like, oh, maybe this is something that is wrong, or maybe something that isn't feeling right for me. because maybe their parents talk to them in similar ways. So kind of noticing, which is hard to kind of go back to your family of origin and be like, ooh, was that emotional abuse that I experienced? It's an uncomfortable journey.
Yeah, and I think it goes because the word abuse makes it sound like we think we need to go through something like physical or really severe, or like, I don't know, like it has to be like this horrible thing. But it can have many levels. Being invalidating and being told, yeah, you shouldn't cry, even though it's important to you, that's gonna hurt in the inside. It's gonna create a wound that you cannot see, but it's gonna be there.
Yeah,
so that's part of abuse too.
I always say that what keeps people in relationships is not the physical abuse. It's the emotional and the psychological abuse. Because I've never seen physical abuse without the emotional abuse. Because the emotional and psychological abuse makes you feel like shit, or makes you feel really bad about yourself, and it makes you feel like you deserve the physical. So emotional abuse is really hard to notice, but it is incredibly impactful on your self-esteem. It can lead to depression. It can lead to anxiety. And so that's kind of why we wanted to cover this topic, because I think it's a trauma maybe people aren't as familiar with.
Yeah. And if you feel that you experience this in your relationship, like it can be, and just to clarify, it doesn't have to be only romantic relationships. It can be with like friends, family, like co-workers. It can happen in any situation. So if you want someone to talk about, you want to clarify more, please let us know. We're here to help you.
Yes. Anything else you care to share?
No, I think that'll be it.
All right.
We have it covered. Okay.
Awesome.
Bye.
Cool. Bye.